Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Keeping safe, using social distancing and a mask as where it's advisable to do so. Uh, if you're not, and again, please be careful because what you do doesn't affect just you; it affects other people in your life as well. People not in your life, as, as they're connected to people that you do know. Uh, so let's try to maintain a selfless attitude and perspective. This video is continuation of Daniel, chapter 4, 5, and maybe 6. As we left off, it just talked about the story of Daniel and Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, how they were placed in the furnace and they survived, and Daniel interpreted the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Ah, so they were raised in status. This picks up right after that, chapter 4. King Nebuchadnezzar to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, which he had no idea the size of the earth. The earth was their empire and a little bit outside of it. They knew of. King Nebuchadnezzar to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell on all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. It has seemed good to me to show the signs and wonders that the Most High God has wrought toward me. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. How his kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. So he's acknowledging God, which is actually more so than what Israel was doing at that time. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at ease in my house, and prospering in my palace. I had a dream which made me afraid. As I lay in bed, the fancies and the visions of my head alarmed me. Therefore I made a decree that all the wise men of Babylon should be brought before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then the magicians, the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the astrologers came in. I told them the dream, but they could not make known to me its interpretation. At last Daniel came in before me, he who was named Belteshazzar, after the name of my God, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And I told him the dream, saying, O Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, that no mystery is difficult for you, here is the dream which I saw. Tell me its interpretation. The visions of my head as I lay in bed were these. I saw and behold a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height was great. The tree grew and became strong, and its top reached to heaven, and it was visible to the end of the whole earth. Its leaves were fair, and its fruit abundant, and in it was food for all. The beasts of the field found shade under it, and the birds of the air dwelt in its branches, and all flesh was fed from it. I saw in the visions of my head as I lay in bed, and behold, a watcher, a holy one, came down from heaven. He cried aloud and said thus, Hew down the tree, and cut off its branches, strip off its leaves, and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts flee from under it, and the birds from its branches. But leave the stump of its roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze, amid the tender grass of the field. Let him be wet with the dew of heaven. Let his lot be with the beasts and the grass of the earth. Let his mind be changed from a man's, and let a beast's mind be given to him. And let 7 times pass over him. The sentence is by the decree of the watchers, the decision by the word of the holy ones, to the end that the living may know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men, and gives it to whom he will, and sets over it the lowliest of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, saw, and you, O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation, because all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known to me the interpretation, but you are able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was dismayed for a moment, and his thoughts alarmed him. The king said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation alarm you. Belteshazzar answered, My lord, may the dream be for those who hate you, and its interpretation for your enemies. The king said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or interpretation alarm you. For which he replied, My lord, may the dream be for those who hate you, and its interpretation for your enemies. The tree you saw, which grew and became strong, so that its top reached to heaven, and it was visible to the end of the whole earth, whose leaves were fair and its fruit abundant, and which was food for all, and in which beasts of the field found shade, and in whose branches the birds of the air dwelt, it is you, O king, who have grown and become strong. Your greatness has grown and reaches to heaven, and your dominion to the ends of the earth. And whereas the king saw a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, Hew down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump of its roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze, in the tender grass of the field. Let him be wet with the dew of heaven, let his lot be with the beasts of the field, so 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation. O king, this is the decree of the Most High, which has come upon my lord the king, that you shall be driven from among men, that your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. You shall be made to eat grass like an ox, and you shall be wet with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over you, till you know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men, and gives it to whom he will. He's telling them that you're about to be humbled. You're not the ruler over all. God is. Those who are exalted are humbled. And as it was commanded to leave the stump of the roots of the tree, your kingdom shall be sure for you from the time that you know that heaven rules. Therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable to you. Break off your sins by practicing righteousness, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the oppressed, that there may perhaps be a lengthening of your tranquility. All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months he was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon. The king said, Is not this great Babylon, which I have built by my mighty powers, a royal residence, and for the glory of my majesty? Glory of his self-glorification. He's exalting himself. While the words were still in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven. O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The kingdom has departed from you. You shall be driven from among men. And your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and you shall be made to eat grass like an ox. 7 times shall pass over you until you have learned that the Most High rules the kingdom of men, and gives it to whom he will. All these rulers of men and wealthy, exalting themselves for their own self-glorification. This is all going to happen to them, no matter who they are, or what they are, or where they are. Nowhere to hide. It's coming. Immediately the word was fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from among men and ate grass like an ox, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hair grew as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like birds' claws. At the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my reason returned to me, and I blessed the Most High, and praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing, and he does according to his will in the host of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand or say to him, What doest thou? God does what he wants. He's God. At the same time, my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my majesty and splendor returned to me. My counselors and my lords sought me, and I was established in my kingdom, and still more greatness was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol thee, and honor the King of heaven. All his works are right, and his days are just, and those who walk in pride he is able to abase. So he learned his lesson. But it hasn't changed mankind. From the beginning of mankind to the present, it's still ongoing. The more people build themselves up and acquire and power and wealth, position, titles, the more they exalt themselves. It's an illness, it's an obsession, it's an addiction. They want more and they want more and they want more and they think they need more. They have no idea the cliff that they're approaching. Chapter 5. King Belshazzar made a great feast for 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine in front of the 1,000. Belshazzar, when he tasted the wine, commanded that the vessels of gold and of silver, which Nebuchadnezzar his father had taken out of the temple of Jerusalem, be brought, that the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. Then they brought in the golden and silver vessels which had been taken out of the temple, the house of God in Jerusalem. The king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. There's no gods in those things. There's only one God. He's picking up the same stuff. No matter who gets, I don't care who they are, as they acquire these things, it possesses them. They become possessed. They come under the control of evil. Do not seek the things of this world. Seek the things of God. Humble thyself. Do not seek glory. Do not seek fame, fortune. Seek humility, meekness. Seek the word of God. Immediately the fingers of a man's hand appeared, and wrote on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, opposite the lampstand, and the king saw the hand as it wrote. Then the king's color changed, and his thoughts alarmed him. His limbs gave way, his knees knocked together. The king cried aloud to bring in the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the astrologers. The king said to the wise men of Babylon, "Whoever reads this writing and shows me its interpretation shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold about his neck. Shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Then all the king's wise men came in. They could not read the writing or make known to the king the interpretation. Then King Belshazzar was greatly alarmed, and his color changed, and his lords were perplexed. He didn't learn what his father learned. The queen, because of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banqueting hall. The queen said, "O king, live forever. Let not your thoughts alarm you or your color change. There is in your kingdom a man in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. In the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father, made him chief of the magicians, enchanters, Chaldeans, and astrologers. Because an excellent spirit, knowledge, and understanding to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve problems were found in this Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation." He's being called upon to help Nebuchadnezzar's son. Then Daniel was brought in before the king. The king said to Daniel, "You are that Daniel, one of the exiles of Judah, whom the king my father brought from Judah. I have heard of you that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you. Now the wise men, the enchanters, have been brought in before me to read this writing and make known to me its interpretation, but they could not show the interpretation of the matter. But I have heard that you can give interpretations and solve problems. Now if you can read the writing and make known to me its interpretation, you shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold about your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Then Daniel answered before the king, "Let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to another." He doesn't want them. Like me, and anybody who truly serves the Lord, we don't do it for glory. We don't do it for fame or fortune. We don't want nothing. Because it comes through us, this conduit. All glory belongs to God. Nevertheless, I will read the writing to the king and make known to him the interpretation. "O king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father kingship and greatness and glory and majesty. Because of the greatness that he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him, whom he would slew, and whom he would kept, and whom he kept alive, whom he would be raised up, and whom he would be put down. But when his heart was lifted up and his spirit was hardened, so that he dealt proudly, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and his glory was taken from him. He was driven from among men, and his mind was made like that of a beast, and his dwelling was with the wild asses. He was fed grass like an ox, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, until he knew that the Most High God rules the kingdom of men, and sets over it whom he will. And you, his son Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, though you knew all this, but you have lifted up yourself against the Lord of heaven, and the vessels of his house have been brought in before you, and you and your lords, your wives, and your concubines have drunk wine from them. And you have praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which do not see or hear or know, they don't exist. But the God in whose hand is your breath, whose are all your ways, you have not honored." Then from his presence the hand was sent, and this writing was inscribed. And this is the writing that was inscribed: Mene, Mene, Tekel, and Parsin. This is the interpretation of the matter. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. That's part of the judgment, the balances. So all that good weight takes, all that bad balances against all that good that you've accumulated in your treasure account in heaven. Then after that's done, then he asks you which way you want to go. And then Perez, or it says Parson, but here Perez, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar commanded, and Daniel was clothed with purple, a chain of gold that was put around his neck, and proclamation was made concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. That very night Belshazzar, the Chaldean king, was slain, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. So Darius takes over. Median, from further west in Babylon. So he didn't learn his lesson. Daniel told him what it meant. Daniel told him, "Do not give me these things. Give them to somebody else. Give them to those in need. I don't need them. I don't want them. All the stuff I've done, and those like me, we shared YouTube videos and on the blog. I don't make no money from that. I don't make no fame or glory, nor do I want it. All glory belongs to God. All that I share comes from God. Let's go to chapter 6. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps, who were like governors or such as something like that, to be throughout the whole kingdom. And over them 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was one, to whom these satraps should give account, so that the king might suffer no loss. Then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other presidents and satraps, because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Then the presidents and the satraps sought to find a ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom, jealousy, envy. But they could find no ground for complaint or any fault. Jealousy is straight, that's the devil, 100%. Then the presidents and the satraps sought to find a ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom. But they could find no ground for complaint or any fault, because he was faithful and no error or fault was found in him. Then these men said, "We shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel, unless we find it in connection with the law of his God." Then these presidents and satraps came by agreement to the king and said to him, "O King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, and the prefects and the satraps, the counselors and the governors, are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an interdict, that whoever makes petition to any god or man for 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions." It comes up, set up the den of lions. So set him up, so they're trying to say, tell Darius, say, hey, talk him up, talk in his ear, on his ego. Hey, you're the greatest. You come first, not some god. Now, O king, establish the interdict and sign that document so that it cannot be changed, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked. Therefore, King Darius signed the document and interdict. He didn't listen to the right people. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house, where he had windows in his upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he had done previously. Then these men came by agreement, and found Daniel making petition and supplication before his God. Then they came near and said before the king concerning the interdict, "O king, did you not sign an interdict, that any man who makes petition to any god or man within 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions?" The king answered, "The thing stands fast, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be revoked." Then they answered before the king, "That Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no heed to you, O king, or the interdict you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day." Jealousy. Jealousy is the devil. That's what caused him to get kicked out of heaven. It caused him to blaspheme against the Holy Spirit. Then the king, when he heard these words, was much distressed, and set his mind to deliver Daniel, and he labored till the sun went down to rescue him. Then these men came by agreement to the king, and said to the king, "Know, O king, that it is a law of the Medes and Persians that no interdict or ordinance which the king establishes can be changed." The king was boxed into a corner. And the king commanded, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve, continually deliver you." And the stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den. The king sealed it with his own signet, with the signet of his words, that nothing might be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No diversions were brought to him, and sleep fled from him. Then at break of day the king arose and went in haste to the den of lions. When he came near to the den where Daniel was, he cried out in a tone of anguish, and said to Daniel, "O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions?" He's boxed in the corner by his own. He didn't realize that he had authority to overrule his own edict. Then Daniel said to the king, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not hurt me, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you, O king. I have done no wrong." Then the king was exceedingly glad, and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of hurt was found upon him, because he had trusted in his God. And the king commanded, and those men who had accused Daniel were brought and cast into the den of lions, they, their children, and their wives. Before they reached the bottom of the den, the lions overpowered them and broke all the bones in pieces. So don't mess with God. Then King Darius wrote to all the peoples, nations, and like, "Don't mess with servants. of God, true servants of God, not the false ones, true servants of God. So people mess with me, I leave it to God because He'll take care of them in time, perfect way, perfect place. Don't mess with the servant of God, true servant of God, not self-proclaimed. Then King Darius wrote to all the peoples, nations, and languages that dwell on all the earth. Peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in all my royal dominion men tremble in fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. He delivers and rescues, he works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth, he who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So and Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar. So he withstood all different kings and their proselytizers. So we'll pick up on chapter 7 next. Continued life and experiences of Daniel in Babylon. So again, the main thing is there is self-exaltation. Don't build yourself up. Don't seek glory and fame and fortune in this world. It's foolishness. It's foolishness. Seek the glory of God. Seek to glorify God. Thanks to Him and humble yourself. Leave your glory and exaltation in the hands of God. To do as what He pleases, when He pleases, where He pleases, and how He pleases. But the choice is yours. But it's gotta come out careful how you choose, because there's a consequence to all your choices. Peace of Christ. God bless.